Let's go, Jack. Greenhouse. Come on, hurry up. Hey, Jack. Let's go to the greenhouse, Jack. Every morning, Jack goes out to the greenhouse with Irene when she does her rounds in the greenhouse. This morning, he's taking his time coming because she's not here and I am. It's a short but important walk. Come on, let's go. Come on, let's go. All right. All right, let's back it up. I'm gonna go check this over here. Let's go, come on.
Hey folks, I've had a lot of questions about how much energy our greenhouse takes to run. That is, how much electricity it takes. There's a whole series of things that we use in the greenhouse that use electricity. We have lights that are in the top of the greenhouse for working when it's dark out, and that's primarily in the winter time. We have a water pump that's used to run the hydroponic system for our Dutch buckets. We also have an air pump that aerates the hydroponic liquid. Probably the biggest consumer of electricity in that greenhouse is that fan. The fan that we use in the cooler to push the hot air out of the greenhouse and bring cooler air in from outside. So let's go ahead and take a look at what it actually takes to power the greenhouse. Well, we're going to have a little bit of a geek moment here. We have a bunch of things to talk about that are numbers. They're not hard numbers. Sometimes it's a little confusing, but it's understandable. So, how much electricity do we use? Well, those ceiling lights that we use when it's dark out consume 39 watts for all of them. So if we run the ceiling lights for an hour, it's 39 watt hours. Not a big draw on our system. But it's at night. Unfortunately, our solar panels don't generate electricity at night, so we have to rely on the batteries. The air pump for the Dutch bucket hydroponic system uses about 7 watts. That means over the course of a day, it takes, let's call it about 140 watt hours. It's not too bad. It's less than we use in the house for things like our computer or our lights. The water pump. The water pump for the hydroponic system consumes a little bit of energy. It's 13 watts when it's running. Now, the way we set up our hydroponic system, we run the pump for 5 hours. In the summertime, it's 5 hours at night because that cools the water off so that the water doesn't get too hot for the plants. In the wintertime, we'll run the pump later in the day so that we're not cooling the water. That pump uses 13 watts when it's running. 13 watts times, let's call it 6.5 hours. Okay, more geeking. We multiply the number of watts, 13, times the number of hours, 6.5. That gives us the total for that particular pump. Not a big deal. It uses about 13 times 6. 13 times 6 is 78, plus a half of 13 is, let's call it 7. So we're using about 75 watts, 75 watt hours. So we're using about 75 watt hours to run the water pump for the hydroponic system. Where things get really interesting is when we start talking about the fan that we use to move the air out of the greenhouse. When I run the fan in its first position, that's the lowest possible draw. That's 191 watts. That's a bit of power, especially since in the summertime we run that fan for 10 hours. So if we run the fan on the first setting, we're going to use 1.9 kilowatt hours. That's an awful lot of power. But we don't just run it on the first setting, we run it on the second setting. And the second setting uses 234 watts. 10 hours times 234 watts is 2.34 kilowatt hours. That's a whole lot of electricity, especially when you're running off-grid on solar power. Now, if things are really, really hot, meaning we're over 100 degrees outside, we may need to move that fan to the third speed selection. That third speed selection uses 321 watts. Again, 10 hours times 321 watts is 3.2 kilowatt hours. So, we can use an awful lot of power to run our greenhouse in the summertime. It's actually worse in the wintertime. Why is that? Well, in the summertime, we have good solar generation from about 9 o'clock in the morning until about 4 o'clock in the afternoon. That covers most of the time when these high draw appliances are running. In the wintertime, we can really only count on really good solar production from about 10 in the morning until about 2 in the afternoon. So that's 4 hours over the day. That's only half of the time that those high draw appliances actually run. That makes it a little more interesting. So what are we going to do? Well, the greenhouse ran just fine this summer using the timer that we used to turn on and off the fan while we were gone. But we're going to be going away again for a week in October. It's going to be cooler, there's not going to be as much sun, and we may have cloud cover. So, in the next installment, I'll show you how we're going to go about modifying our system so that we only run the fan when it's absolutely necessary. Thanks for watching this video today. Please like and subscribe and ring the notification bell if you like what you see. Have a great day.